My friends, one of the most vivid memories of my childhood was the angst in my family during the McCarthy era. My parents had plenty to worry about, but that's a sermon for another day. They were constantly talking and agonizing about the terror and cruelty of McCarthy's accusations. My parents constantly, continually praised the ACLU for its brave stand and hard work to counter McCarthy's false and devastating accusations. And we all know the ACLU is the nation's premier defender of the rights enshrined in our Constitution, and continues to fight government abuse and vigorously defends individual freedoms, including speech and religion, women's right to choose, and so much more. We've all come to count on the ACLU for its unyielding dedication to principle. And you know, I really was honored when David and Pam became members of our congregation. And they are now an integral part of our temple family. And so we are so blessed to have David with us, with his, to address us with his wisdom and his good work. David. Shabbat Shalom, David.
Shabbat Shalom. That was quite a lead up there. I hope I can fulfill this. But I do appreciate the time before the congregation today. About a year ago, it was April of last year, I spoke to you all. Many of the faces are familiar from that talk. And at that time, we were, just 3 or 4 months in the Trump administration. Birthright citizenship had been, called into question through Donald Trump's executive order. But at that time, we were really at the tip of the iceberg. Unfortunately, things have gotten a lot more dire over the last year. So what I'm hoping to do today is kind of level set from my vantage point in the work I do every day, where we're at, and then hopefully give some hope, because I do see some signs to be optimistic about, and talk about perhaps how the congregation can be part of the movement to resist authoritarianism. I'm not able to see. Yeah, let's see. You were right. No, we're good. We'll figure it out. No, we're good. We'll make it work. Oh, that's perfect. That's all I need to see. So, like I mentioned, when I talked to you last time, the threats to our rights and liberties of our friends and neighbors and ourselves was very much theoretical. We had heard a lot about Project 2025, and there was some immigration enforcement, but nothing like we've seen over the last year. So what I'm hoping to do is kind of level set where we're at. I have the great privilege to have my role and be able to spend a lot of time thinking about these issues. And one thing that I've really tried to bring people's attention to is the gravity of this moment. On the screen here, we can share this out to the congregation afterwards, is the spectrum of the stages towards authoritarianism. There's 7 different stages here. This is an amalgamation of a lot of different academic learnings, but the main thing that I wanted to outline is just how far along we are on that spectrum, in my and many other learned people, way smarter than my opinion. We are at this 6th stage, which is really right before the consolidation and full-fledged authoritarianism takes hold. And there's a couple things that are hallmarks of this that unfortunately the Jewish people are very well aware of, because you've often been on the receiving end of this. What you see when a leader starts to try to gain power and really take over in this authoritarian way is scapegoating populations, usually smaller, vulnerable populations, in this case immigrants, LGBT folks, trans folks. You begin to see the undermining of people's faith in institutions, delegitimizing that, whether it be courts or elections. And you also see the silencing or oppression of the media and free speech. We've seen all of that. I'm not going to spend time going through the laundry list of those events. You've seen them, and they're in the news quite literally on a daily basis. The important thing to know is that we are not foregone. We can still turn this around, and I'm going to hopefully walk you through what I see as some opportunities and some signs of real positive change here. We're ready for the next slide, John. So we at the ACLU have been using this three-stage tactic, essentially, of how to tackle authoritarianism. And it's a very simple design, which is important because we want people to be able to remember this and share it. But essentially, there are three stages. First, you have to slow authoritarianism, then you stop it, and then you reverse it. We are still very much in the yellow zone of slowing it. And what that involves is, essentially slowing it down by throwing sand in the gears of this movement, whether it be through strategic lawsuits, protests, economic boycotts, things of that nature, ways to just make this march less quick. A lot of what we can do here in Connecticut, and I'll speak to it very briefly, I don't have a ton of time, but is that we are a state that has the ability to enact laws that will keep our people protected. Again, certain things like immigration are not within state control, but we can control some things and protect our people and resource our people from some of the harms of the federal government. And I'm disheartened to say that our leadership over the last year in the state has really not done what they need to. There's been a lot of talk, but there's not been a lot of bold, proactive action. There's been a lot of reactive, half-baked measures, but we have not done what we can do as a state to keep our people safe and truly be a safe haven for our people and others. The second stage, we're not quite ready yet, John, is stopping it. So this is the exciting part that I wanted you all to know about. How many people, just by raise of hand, have heard about the 3.5% number in resisting authoritarianism? All right, so a small fraction. So now you all know about it. Over the last 30 years, there's been many authoritarian takeovers or attempts. And what academics have found is that if 3.5% of people regularly resist an uprise, and that's not just going to the No Kings rally, that's some sustained activism and bringing more people into the fold, it reliably stops an authoritarian takeover or reverses it. In Connecticut, that's 125,000 people. That's not a lot of people. The ACLU has 20,000 members alone, and when you go to No Kings 3, hopefully next Saturday, you'll see many people with you. The trick is getting people to sustain in that activism and raise their voice. I'm going to be honest, raising that 3.5% in Connecticut is a lot easier than some other states, but we can be a model and we can set the tone, and we need that 3.5% to be loud and vocal, not just to counter things in Washington, but to make sure, like I said, that we have state-based protections that really protect people. The final stage is the most important one, and we cannot wait until later in this movement to do this. It's reversing it. And part of reversing it is building a shared vision of what we want to go back to. We cannot go back to 2016 because that was an inequitable society that led to where we're at. This is not just a Donald Trump thing. Our democracy is one that is rife with inequities, and that is not a bug. It's very much a feature of the way our country was set up 250 years ago. I believe, through having conversations with individuals and legislators and groups, that there is a collective awareness of how inequitable our society is in a way that there wasn't during Trump's first administration. I do think during Trump's first administration, many people were caught off guard, including myself, and thought this is a one-off. This is one awful guy. We just have to ride these 4 years out. We're going to be fine. And people did breathe a sigh of relief when he was voted out and kind of went back to business as usual, especially a lot of white folks. I'm going to get into this in a minute, but people with privilege went back to our daily lives. We cannot let that happen this time. And I think we have the pieces in place, and I'm seeing people understand deeply how entrenched racism and sexism are in our country and how we need to eradicate that in rebuilding. Part of building this movement, this 3.5%, is also getting people that are not necessarily the choir. I'm very much preaching to the choir, even though we're in Temple here today. You're all very much on side and aligned philosophically and values-wise, but we need to bring more people into this movement. There's a slide on that coming up, but part of that is while we're building this and resisting, we're also building what we want to replace it. If you wait until we stop it, you have a very poor chance of building something that is more equitable, more strong, more democratic, and more fair. We're ready for the next slide, John. And the other thing is I wanted just to name, like, Tikkun Olam is very much about, like, repairing and leaving things better than we inherited it. And we're in that moment right now. We need to stop the harm, but also we need to think about the next step. So I've already voiced over a lot of this. I got excited and got ahead of myself, but there are some pretty bad stats around these slides for authoritarianism worldwide. Over the last 30 years, roughly 70% of these breakdowns ultimately resulted in full authoritarian rule. So, I do really truly believe we'll get through this, but it is not something to take for granted, which is part of why I wanted to level set with you all and tell you just how bad this is. Seeing the headlines one at a time sometimes doesn't really paint the picture of just how deep of a problem that we're in right now. The good news is, though, that more than half of the countries that did slide into authoritarian made that democratic U-turn and came back out of it. So again, it's not the death of a democracy to go into that, but it often is a long process. So hopefully we head this off before we get into that stage 7, which is the full takeover. We're ready for the next one. So down here is some statistics about what led to success in that U-turn. And the bottom line is that civil resistance is the key. That's you all. That's people banding together and standing up and saying, we're not going to take any more of this. This is not what we're about. We're sick of seeing our families and friends torn apart. It can happen without that, but it is most successful when people rise up. And we're seeing through the No Kings protests and other things, there's more mobilization both in number and frequency than the first Trump administration. So we have the ingredients here already setting up. We can go to the next spot. This is the 3.5% number. Again, that's meant to show you just how few people it takes regularly engaging to turn this around. This is probably my favorite slide and one that I definitely want to make sure that the congregation gets. This is a wheel of power and privilege. David McGuire, myself, I am squarely in the middle of that because I have all the qualities that have the greatest privilege in our society. The reason that I bring that up is that many of you are in that middle band with me, not all of you. Some of you have some qualities that bring you out, but it is the people that are in the middle that need to do the hard work at this moment. We cannot expect people that are squarely in the crosshairs of this administration to do the heavy lifting. For far too long, we've basically said, your problem, you deal with it. It is our duty as privileged people to toe the line, be the front of the line, and really do the thing right now. We have the resources and ability to do that, and I am very grateful to be part of this congregation for a number of reasons, but one is the community and the values alignment. So we have a power base at this temple that can be a big driver. I know we are part of GIA, and that our temple does a lot of activism, but we can do more, and I want to help facilitate some of that, and hope tonight is the start of that. So yeah, this is a great chart to share with your friends and family, because it really does put in a stark way where you sit in this and what your role needs to be over the next 3+ years. Truly, this is a generational fight at this point, but at least for the next 3 years. Ready for the next one. So this is probably the most important one that I wanted to show you all. This is a spectrum of allies. So we have limited time. I get not everyone has the benefit of getting paid to do civil rights and liberties work, and you only have so much time. So a couple things that I say that there are many issues that are on fire at once. The rabbi named a couple of them. Pick one or two that are really important to you, learn about them, and engage deeply on it. The other thing is that you have large social circles. You know people from across the spectrum, I would imagine. We're in a moment where this should not be partisan. Unfortunately, it is. But the point of this chart is to look at those middle 3 bands. The people that are active opposition and active allies are not worth your time. You don't need to convince the people that are already convinced, and the people that are locked in. You can talk until you're blue in the face. There can be a million heartbreaking scenarios in the news. They're just not going to change. What we need to focus on is this middle band of moving, ideally, the passive opposition to neutral, and then even more importantly, the neutral to passive allies. And this is through getting people to give mutual aid, to go to a protest, submit testimony, small acts. The active allies are the people that are out every weekend. They're phone banking, they're doing all the things. We need to move people from neutral to passive. And We saw this in Nazi Germany. We saw that 90% of the people were in that neutral category, a bystander. And when you're a bystander in a moment like this, you are part of the problem. Bottom line, like, silence is consent in an environment like this. You know, the bottom line is that authoritarians feed off silence and fear. That is the name of their game, and I'm sorry to say that as we get closer to the election, things will get worse. When authoritarians feel their grasp slipping, they will grip down harder. We see this through all the tactics around election rolls. We see this through trying to either discredit our election that's coming up or influence it in a way that disenfranchises or intimidates lots of people. This is going to be very difficult, but we have a moment here to move people across this spectrum, and I really hope that you'll leave this tonight, if nothing else, understanding this and focusing on working your social networks to move people into action or move them from that passive resistance to neutral. But really, it's the neutral to passive ally that you need. And again, passive allies are small acts. 3 or 4 things a year is all we need from folks like that. It will make a huge difference collectively. What else do we have, John? This is just a nice chart to show what an authoritarian regime is built on. And part of building this movement is that we can knock out columns of this and topple that regime. So, you know, business, you saw the inauguration, you saw all these leaders of these mega billionaires leading all these tech companies sitting in the front row, nodding. They are doing what is expedient for them at this moment, but they can shift their opinion based on consumers, based on popular opinion and power. You all have that power, and we need to leverage it. Education, we've seen some education institutions stand up. We've seen others absolutely fold. Again, you're all alumni of education institutions. Like, make your voice heard. Tell them what's acceptable and what is unacceptable. We're seeing the military and police put in tremendously precarious spots. We see the National Guard here in Connecticut really not knowing what to do when this comes to us, which truthfully it's an inevitability that a Minneapolis type event happens here. It's not an if, it's a when, so we need to be prepared for that and support folks that are going to be defending us. So this is just, and faith obviously is a huge piece. That is one of our strengths. I've seen just we had a big hearing at the Capitol last Monday, and there was a tremendous number of faith leaders there that legislators leaned over to me and said, this is amazing, and this is inspiring, and this helps me make the case in my caucus as to why we need to do this. So more of that. So I'll end by saying that collective work is going to be really important here. I'll be around. We're here often. You could always feel free to come up and talk with me, but the gravity of this moment is real. It is scary, and it will likely get worse, but we have tremendous ability in this congregation and beyond this congregation, this state, to demand better and be part of the change. We have an amazing window until November to push our elected officials to actually do something here, to put their money where their mouth is and go beyond just rhetoric. We don't need a fun Facebook tweet or post. We need people to actually enact reforms that will protect people and make us safer. And for the next several months, elected officials are going to be listening to you because they want your vote. So it's very important to come up with specific, clear asks and make them directly to them and make those asks often. You don't have to come to the ACLU for that. You can come to our webpage and see all our priorities. I think we are doing very important work in coalition with a lot of other groups on these issues. But find your source, find what you want to happen, and drive it home. Because we have a moment here. If things don't get done before May, communities will have to wait an entire another year. And that is just unacceptable. Families will be ripped apart, lives will be lost. We have no time to waste. So I appreciate the opportunity tonight. We will get to the UConn game and the Purdue game on time. And again, I'm a resource if anyone wants to talk more.
Well, that's fabulous. That was intriguing, and really, thank you so much for, encouraging us to pray with our feet.
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
And how we need to really do that, because it's terrible what's happening now.
We're at that point.
It's scary, and I've studied what happened in Germany, very closely. I actually taught a course, and boy, the similarities.
So many parallels. Yes.
So many parallels. It's terrible. We've got to do something. Thank you, David. You're the best. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank God
David.
you're at the helm. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So inspiring.
We don't usually clap in Temple, but
But
tonight
this
we
was
do.
worth it.